Hello, everybody. I can see people starting to join, so we'll give it a minute or two. Good morning, good afternoon. Good afternoon for me from the UK. Surely it's morning in other places for some of the attendees. Thank you for joining. All right, we're getting more and more people here. Hello again to those who have just joined. So, yes, so this is the last and third installment of our series of Jakarta EE 10 What's New webinars. For those of you who might have not seen or have missed the other two that we've run last week and week before that, we've already done the webinar around what's new in Jakarta EE 10 in microservices and around enterprise development. So again, for those of you who have missed those webinars, we have the recordings available on our YouTube channel as well as on our blog. I will shortly share the links in the chat. So a bit of housekeeping before we start with the actual presentation or with the actual webinar with Lukman. If you have any questions during the presentation, just pop them into the chat or into the Q&A option. You should be able to see both of those in your view. Also, if you want to chat with other attendees, the chat is open for conversations. We are obviously an open source community here, so if anyone actually has an answer to the question that is asked, then feel free to answer as well. But yes, I will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A option during the presentation from Lukman, so you can pop them in there at any point, and we'll get to them. Definitely get to them at some point during the process. So yeah, today we've got part 3, which is what got removed and deprecated in Jakarta EE 10. So yeah, over to you, Lukman. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, thank you very much, Dominica, and good afternoon, good morning, or good evening to you, depending on where you are from across the world. Jakarta EE 10, a little bit of background and context before we dive into the actual presentation. The Jakarta EE 10 release was a very important one because it was the first major release since the platform moved to the Eclipse Foundation. And with a major release like that, it also serves as the foundation for faster innovation on the platform. In fact, one of the criticisms of the previous iterations of Java EE and its current incarnation, Jakarta EE, is that it evolves much slowly. And one of the reasons for the slow evolution was that the platform needed to cater for backward compatibility. Obviously, you have a lot of enterprises, massive enterprises spread across various industries across the world using the platform. And each release needed to be very careful about what it's removed or deprecated so that it doesn't really impact people that much and break the age-old backward compatibility that the platform is known for. So this particular release was sort of a startup or a clean slate to set the stage, to set the foundation for much faster innovations. And so one of the things that needed to be done was sort of a spring cleaning. Spring cleaning in the colloquial sense, not spring as in the other frameworks. So we needed to do, the platform needed to do spring cleaning, and that resulted in some things being removed and others being deprecated as well. So Jakarta EE 10, I can say, is the first release of the platform in the history of the platform with this many deprecations and outright removal. So let's just dive into the actual presentation. I'll share my screen here. Hopefully everybody can see the screen. So
yeah,
Jakarta, okay, great. Jakarta EE 10, what got removed? Starting with Jakarta REST, the version 3.1, that was part of the Jakarta EE 10. The at context annotation is now deprecated. In Jakarta REST, in the previous versions, you used at context to inject Jakarta REST specific components. For instance, the security manager and all of that, you use the at context annotation to inject these components into Jakarta REST artifact. Now, as part of tightening the platform, as part of weaving much better CDI across the platform, this annotation is being deprecated and is marked for removal in a future release to be replaced by at inject. So essentially, the platform is sort of centralizing the Jakarta CDI as the major weaving framework for the platform. And I believe this is a very good thing, because if you have a single source of truth for managing all sorts of dependencies, it makes your application very easy. You don't really need to know anything outside of at inject or a few CDI annotations to manage your dependencies. So I really believe this is a good call. So at context is marked for deprecation and then removal in a future release of Jakarta REST. So keep that in mind if you are developing new applications, or even you want to take a look at your existing application. Now, EJBs, Enterprise Java Beans. This particular API has a very rich and, dare I say, bumpy history on the platform. And one of the, or two of the removals that came as part of Jakarta EE 10 is a complete removal of entity beans. In the past, before the advent of or the standardization of Jakarta persistence API, the EJB had an extension, or sort of part of EJB was doing what Jakarta persistence API does now. And that has been deprecated for quite some time now. And finally, that particular API has been completely removed. So if you have an application that is using this, you really shouldn't have an application that's using this anyway. But if you have an application in a previous release of Jakarta EE or Java EE that's using this, then it's been removed completely from Jakarta EE 10. Also, the embeddable EJB container is gone. So these two are completely gone from the release. And then also the entire EJB API is something you want to do an assessment and audit of your code to see how much you depend on EJB, because there's still discussions about harnessing some of the capabilities of EJB into CDI and then eventually deprecating the entire EJB API. So if you are heavily using EJBs in your application, you want to take some time off and step back and carry out an audit of your dependence on EJB to see where you can start gradually migrating some of those things that you can to CDI, because eventually CDI is going to supersede EJB. Not necessarily today, but eventually it's going to come. So you want to be ready for that. Now to Jakarta Faces. Jakarta Faces version 4 was a spec release for Jakarta EE 10. And as you can see, there was quite a number of removals, because Jakarta Faces is also one of the much older specs on the platform. There's complete removal of JSP support. So the JSP support in Jakarta Faces is completely gone. You need to use Facelet as the view rendering engine for Jakarta Faces. Then there's also the managed beams. This is completely gone in favor of CDI as well. Then there's method binding, value binding, and all the associated frames, they are all gone. Some constants as well in the UI component class. they are gone. Deprecated methods in this class are gone. Entire resource resolver, gone. So there's quite some removal in Jakarta Faces, which I think is in the right direction, because to be able to innovate, especially in a cloud native context, now everything is cloud, everything is about agility and faster evolution, then you need to drop some baggage in the past, from the past actually, so you can innovate faster. So the removal of these, I consider them a good thing, or a good start to allow for a much nimble API. Then to Jakarta CDI 4.0, which is part of Jakarta EE 10. Now, the default behavior of Jakarta CDI changed. In the past, an empty beans would translate to a bin discovery mode of all. But now, an empty beans file would translate to a bin discovery mode of annotated. So if you have an empty beans file in your deployment, the CDI runtime is only going to manage beans that have explicit CDI annotations on them. So you really want to keep those at the back of your mind. So if your application in the past was relying on the default behavior, then you want to keep this at the back of your mind, because it can be a bit of a bummer and sort of, okay, why is this happening moment? So just keep that at the back of your mind. Or to be on the safer side, just add a beans.xml file and then set the bin discovery mode to all, and then you should be good. Ideally, that should be the norm anyway. Have a beans, explicit beans.xml file, and then set the default bin discovery mode, set the bin discovery mode to all. Generally, you want CDI to manage everything in your application. I really can think of a situation where you manage parts of your component and CDI manages part. Just let CDI do everything. So you want to set this to all. Then we come to expression language. Expression language 5.0. Dominica, any questions so far?
No questions at the moment.
Okay, great. So we have expression language 5.0, and here there was a misspelled method. Is parameters provided, but as you can see, the A was missing. So is parameters provided. This method is finally gone. So this method has been removed, and then also the EL resolver method, get feature descriptors, has been deprecated to remove dependency on Java.desktop module. So for expression language, these two are the stuff that are gone. And then we come to Servlet 6.0. The Servlet 6.0 also had the wrap response handling in do-head method deprecated. And then you have all deprecated methods. In fact, for Servlet, it was a lot of cleaning, Spring cleaning. Again, not Spring, our colleague framework, I mean Spring in the colloquial sense of Spring cleaning. So all deprecated methods and classes in Servlet 5.0, and I think all the previous versions, everything that was deprecated is completely gone in Servlet 6.0, which was part of Jakarta EE 10. So you want to keep that at the back of your mind, because the Servlet API is an important, far-reaching API on the Jakarta EE, and even the entire Java ecosystem. So you want to keep this at the back of your mind and audit your application. If you need to upgrade to Jakarta EE 10, you want to audit your application to see if you are using any of these removed components, classes, and methods. And then we have Jakarta XML binding 4.0. There was also quite some cleaning over here as well. So compatibility with Jakarta, JAX-B removed 1.0 is gone. Then remove constraints on using Java desktop. These are very ancient historical stuff that are being removed. Deprecated Jakarta.xml. This is also gone. So essentially for Jakarta XML as well, things that were deprecated in the past have been removed. So again, Jakarta EE 10, apart from the new features or APIs that came with the platform, it was also an opportunity to sort of clean and prune and sort of defatten the platform for future innovation, because the future of enterprise Java is going to be very interesting. It's going to be very exciting, especially in a cloud-native world. So Jakarta EE 10 was an opportunity for the community to de facto remove a lot of baggage, slim the platform for future innovation. So Jakarta XML binding had all these guys also removed from the specification, the version 4.0 that shipped with Jakarta EE 10. And then there were other specs as well. We have Jakarta server pages. There were some removals and deprecations in there as well. All in all, these are the major ones, the popular specifications or APIs that are used a lot. And these are the things, some of the things that were removed or deprecated in the release. You can check out the full set of specifications that made up the release of Jakarta EE 10 at jakarta.ee/specifications. Any questions so far, Dominica?
No questions this time.
Okay, great. So yes, so Jakarta EE 10 had all these removals, again, to set the stage. It's important to put things in proper context so that there is no misunderstanding that the platform is breaking the very, very, very important backwards compatibility. You can't perpetually have backwards compatibility. At some point, something needs to break. At some point, you need to put in just a little more effort to upgrade your application to a specific version. And Jakarta EE 10 is the opportunity for you to do that. The platform took the opportunity to do housekeeping, clean the place. And so you also want to step back, take a look at your application. If you are not on Jakarta EE 10 yet, take a look at your applications within the context of things that have been deprecated or removed. For instance, this annotation here will eventually be removed, just as things that were deprecated in the past have been removed in this version. Things that have been deprecated now will be removed. And for Jakarta REST, this annotation is heavily used. And so you want to step back, audit your code within the context of all these deprecations and removals and see how you can strategize to upgrade your application, because it's important you upgrade to the next major version, especially if you're on much, much older Java EE 7, Java EE 8, thereabout. It's not going to be a walk in the park, but it's a necessary pill to swallow, because if you don't upgrade to Jakarta EE 10, a time will come you are really going to be missing out. Of course, you have the chance, or you have the opportunity to buy support for older versions, absolutely. But you are still going to miss out in the innovations that will be coming on the platform. So I really encourage you, if you are not on 10 yet, step back and then start strategizing as to how you're going to go about it. Dominica, any question?
No, it seems like everything is quite clear. No
Okay, good. Okay, so just to wrap up, for Jakarta EE 10, for the major popular specifications, these are the removals. Jakarta Faces especially had a lot of spring cleaning because there was a lot of olden, ancient, historical baggage in there that really needed to go. And they are all mercifully gone. There's a lot more than this in there. So check out the specs for yourself. All these are important to allow you to have a much slimmer platform. So I think that is just about it from my end here. A lot got removed, but the removal were a necessary pill to swallow for the platform. And you as a developer want to step back and then take a look at your applications, strategize within the context of what has been removed to see how you can upgrade your applications.
Great. Thank you very much, Lukman. I'll share my screen just for a moment. So yeah, I guess that's a wrap up. That's it for our webinar series. So thank you very much everyone for attending. For those of you who haven't checked the chat, I've sent some links to both previous webinar recordings. They're on our blog, so there's a link to the blog, and also we recently released some new resources around Jakarta EE, which is on the blog as well. Lookman and guide to getting started with Jakarta EE development in 2023, so very recent. I encourage you to look at that one on our blog, chat, or just go to and we also have a new business guide to NoSQL on the Jakarta EE platform. So that one is also linked in the chat. And we've had that one for a while. Dismiss the Java myths is also a really good resource. So I encourage you to download that one as well. We've also had a series of that one months ago, and it's on our YouTube channel. So yeah, I think that will be it from us. Thank you very much again.
Also, if anybody in the audience has a topic that they would want us to hold a webinar on, they are absolutely welcome to suggest that as well, and then we can hold another session to go over whatever topic it is.
100%, yes. So we do organize a lot of events around Jakarta EE topics and around obviously our products around private platform. But if there's anything, yeah, anything that you want to hear from us, then yeah, just reach out to us either via our social media or send us a message. Send us at Payara Fish, contact form on the website. Yeah, and the recording of this session will also be available. So just keep an eye on your inbox, and we'll be sending it to you in the next few days. Thank you very much, Lookman, for this presentation. Oh, I can see that there is a comment that someone might not have heard us clearly. So hopefully, really sorry about that. We did test the sound, so hopefully this is not a general issue for everyone. Hopefully the recording will have the right sound, the quality of sound. So maybe check that one out. And yeah, thank you very much all for attending. We hope that it was that the series was useful and informative for you. Again, please do let us know if there's anything that you would about Jakarta EE. And we to talk about Jakarta EE, definitely. So have a great weekend and have a great day, and we hope. Bye.